I'd like more pizza. Yes, please.
Did you get some sound coming through?
Oh yeah.
Oh shit! Oh nice.
It's already going crazy.
Bro, play us like a bit of that song again. What? You say that they're demos, but they also like you drop it tomorrow and it'll be absolutely fine.
Literally, when, yeah.
I was tempted to see if I could record this in a proper studio, and then while experiencing a few studio sessions, I just realized they were way too clean for the project.
Yeah.
It's
And also,
like it's so well recorded
Yeah.
that it loses the scratchy
totally.
amateur edge to it.
Totally. It's almost like, what is a proper studio anymore?
True.
You want a bit of this?
And to scoop.
Tell me what you were going to say before about the song.
So, I wrote it as in a frustration from like an argument with my parents. And two songs, this one and the next one. I think it might have been a conversation with my mom. I think it was around the time period I dropped out of uni. And it was kind of like just my way of like, I'm trying.
Right.
And I had only written the chorus. Well, I just sang it in and I was like, I don't know how to work off of this. I like the way it sounds. We're just gonna keep it. So the verse I only recorded 2 weeks ago. So I went on this shoot with one of my favorite cinematographers, Dan Broadley. So he's in a band. The lady who's in the band with him, she's an awesome writer. They play one of their new songs and it just absolutely blows me away.
Oh, wow.
And like, it starts off by, damn, I'm so much like my mother. And the second half of that first verse is then, I should have learnt from my father.
Oh, wow, yes.
And like, I was just listening to the song, and I was filming the live session,
Right.
and I was just like, how? Like,
Yeah.
how have you got to this point?
Yeah.
And that's like literally the first lyrics. And I was like, this is freaking crazy. Marveling. And a few days later, she listens to Cross and messages me and she's like, oh my gosh.
Wow,
and so that was already like a appreciation.
Yes.
Like, damn, this amazing writer appreciates my track.
That's huge. That's beautiful.
That's so good.
Literally a few days after leaving the shoot, I then am listening to this and I'm like, oh snap, that's
where it
words.
goes.
And so that's why it starts off as I hate that I'm so much like you, because that's one of the things, particularly with my dad, that makes us clash the most.
Okay.
Being the only boy,
Sure.
being like very driven, being very certain of what I want.
Yeah.
Just
Totally.
means that,
Is he similar?
yeah,
Okay.
it just means that we clash so much based on that side of things. And like, I wrote it and finished it and I was like, this is definitely a song to my dad.
Yes.
But at the same time, within the story of Samson, there was also that friction between what he wanted, what he did, and what his dad did.
Totally.
And in the podcast where you outlined how he almost like in the same vein as stepping out of what his parents wanted him to do.
Yes.
As far as like the lion and the honey situation, he then presents the honey to his father to eat. In a sense, it was like, despite him having failed in being in line, there was still an attempt at trying to communicate, to be close, and all of that.
Totally, because they're on their way to to meet his bride, and before his mum has already said, could you not just be with effectively a woman that we approve of? And then he kills a lion, and it's like, if I could just tell you I've done this, I've killed a lion. Do you know what I mean? Like, would you approve of me now? I've overcome the most majestic beast, but I can't tell you. So what I'm gonna do on the way back, when he discovers the honey, I'm gonna bring you as close to the act without telling you what it is.
Yeah.
And it just exposes like Actually, at the heart of Samson, as it is with me, is just I want your approval.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And
I just want you to know, and I want you to know who I am.
And
That's yours. You have it, cheeks. No, Mummy doesn't want to have some.
Nothing. I'm full.
and even within his like dancing around the truth thing, to some degree, I get him not being. It's like there's that whole thing that like the omittance of truth is as good as lying.
Yes.
But there is instances where telling the full truth might do more damage based on the circumstance than waiting for time to die down.
Yes.
And so in a sense, the song is kind of like that for me because there's so much that I express on the song that I wish I could just express
totally,
but there is no context.
Totally, which is why
what's the container, isn't it? The
safe
space of the container of the song.
And like Samson, we're speaking in riddles. Here's a riddle to tell you who I am. And you have to try and work out the riddle to understand me.
To understand it.
And we're always doing that. Here's a piece of communication. I desperately want to just tell you who I am, but I'm afraid to. So here's a riddle. Here's some self-sabotage. Here's some pushing you away. You know what I mean?
There's something so beautiful about that because, like, in a person approaching a riddle, they don't just take it at face value. You are forced to see this piece of information from as many perspectives as you possibly can in order to try and find the key. So in the singular conversation, they then have to just interpret that however it goes in. Whereas like in him presenting a riddle, it's like you might not be able to understand my perspective, but at least this gives you a better chance of finding my perspective than me just saying it to you.
But you have to do some work to get there.
And
you have to do some work to get there.
It's
like,
so interesting.
Samson is born. Like it's interesting you say about his father because it's not his dad. He's not. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't have a father. His mom finds out she's pregnant miraculously.
And it's so funny that isn't highlighted enough in his story.
No. So and she meets a man in a field and becomes pregnant, and the man is a messenger from God. And she becomes pregnant, and it's a miracle. So Samson lives his whole life with this huge national vocation to be a redeemer, be a judge, but he's just a little boy who wants to know who his dad is. And so how could it not end in violence and chaos? Yeah, because he doesn't know who he is. And then he's constantly performing. Why does he tie the foxtails together?
The fox thing is one of my, like when you were talking about it being like a legend. It's one of those scenes that like I can't help. Have you seen The Emperor's New Groove?
Yeah, I love it.
I can't help but seeing it played out in that cartoon style.
Just like, it's so theatrical.
It is.
He could just burn down the vineyards and instead, and that follows the pattern of his life of something always being threaded and twined together. He threads together the fox's tail. He plaits his hair. It's all this kind of like desire for interconnection, a locking together. His life is ended between two pillars that he brings together.
And again, that is such a Hercules moment.
Yeah, it is.
Like, it couldn't be painted more. I'm tempted, very tempted to have the cover art be some flip on that moment. Because in a sense, it's kind of like bringing down the temple, but also breaking down the walls. It's also like indicative of like, because those pillars are your security.
Totally.
So pulling that down is like pulling down the mosque, is pulling down. So I'm still yet to figure out. It's gonna be a circle. It's gonna be like my new thing with the circles.
I've been noticing that.
Is they are like a peephole, like almost how you look through the door to see who's on the other side of it, but almost like for people to see in. Just like windows.
I've clocked it, man. I've been like, what are you doing here? Yeah. that's interesting.
And then the frames are meant to be actually curated pieces. It's like, here's my art. Yes. Now you can look through my lens.
Interesting. So this is why I'm allowing you to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, okay.
At the start of it, I started it as look at your own risk.
Yeah, right.
Because in a sense, I feel like as an artist, I'm always scared to show too much because then it's like there's a little bit of mystery that's necessary. But at the same time, you trade something. You trade the mystery for seeing me more as a human.
Yes.
But
yes.
that could also be detrimental to my art because then if I'm just a person like you, it creates this conflict, which is why a lot of people don't want to see their heroes as
for
human,
sure. But it's interesting because there's always a point in an artist's life where it seems, and I'm talking obviously way beyond before the era of social media, where an artist does something like a self-portrait.
Yeah.
So Rembrandt's self-portrait. Rembrandt is, iconic artist. His self-portrait is as close as you could get to the people as in that context of like, here I am, this is me, this is the man behind the painting that you loved and adored. How you like me now? You know what I mean? Like weathered and tired and calloused and old. And it's almost something in an artist, there is this desire to expose yourself, to reveal yourself. And so you don't want to because you want to remain mysterious, you want to remain other. Yeah. But actually, perhaps the whole reason we get into creating art is because we just don't want to feel alone in it. Yeah. And then Samson again. Samson standing up saying, I have this burden that I carry, which is I'm a divine tool of violence and retribution. Yes, darling? Yes, babes? You having a bath? So he's carrying that, and then he does these riddles to try and tell people that he's doing it. I'll come up in a minute, babes. I want to tell you. I want to tell you. I'm born to bring destruction, but I can't. So here's an idea about it. Here's a riddle. Out of the ether comes something to eat.
And when you pointed that out in the podcast about in what literally the most important moment of his life as far as he's getting married. He chooses to put this thing that could just cause chaos. In a sense, it reminds me of that conversation of like the artist self-sabotaging in order to have more content, or for lack of a better word, or material. Right. Because in a sense, as artists, especially because in the last post I put up about the why we create, I was talking about like how I love the element of like approaching art kind of like a painter, where you go into the solitude and you expose yourself, you find it, you slap it together. In a sense, when you're ready to show this to the world, you're back in that space, that space between this could ruin me. Like I could have exposed too much, I could have done this, but in a sense, that is kind of like the perfect window. Yeah. Because like that's where another person in that experience could look at it and be like, wow, like that's you. Yes. But at the same time, it could also be the moment the arrow pierces through the heart. 100%. So, I found it really fascinating. Like it was just poetry on poetry on poetry. It was almost like David was poetry and he was like a thespian.
It's like it's performance art. It's like
so beautiful.
Taking the gates of the city and carrying them up to the hill. Like it is. And I like this is a little bit odd, I know, but I even think about we wear crosses around our necks, right? And a cross is a Roman torture device. It'd be like wearing an electric chair, But it's because it's beautiful, and it's Christ in his most sorrowful, vulnerable, beaten and betrayed form, and yet we look at it and it just enlightens us. It's so beautiful, but it's destruction, and we carry it because of what it then speaks to us of, the death of death. And every artist has that moment of like, I gotta burn it all down. Like if something new's gonna come, if there's gonna be a resurrection, I've got to break. But so you're the artist, and you paint on every canvas that you have, and all you have left is your home, and so you burn the house down to the ground. Because what's more beautiful than bringing down something that you love and the only thing you have left? Do you know what I mean? There's nothing more. It's the tragic artist of like it's Fight Club. You see Fight Club? It's the scene when Edward Norton is just going, he's beating up Jared Leto, and he beats him to a pulp. And they're like, why did you do it? And he just says, I wanted to destroy something beautiful. It's to that effect. Like, I just wanted to break something beautiful. And that exists within us all. Like, there's almost nothing more tragic than that. And there's nothing more artistic than tragedy.
Even in the tragedy is like, it reminds me of that, the darkest moment of the night is before the sunrise type situation, where it's like technically looking at the cross, we are simultaneously looking at the point of most darkness, but also the beginning of most light. So in a sense, that us treading that line is constantly being at like the end of self to like the potential rise of something greater. So it's to me, that's why like the Samson story is becoming more and more real and more like just a beautiful painting.
Yes.
Because the more I listen to these tracks, one, the more I see myself in him, but also the more real or human his character becomes.
100%.
Because that desire for like to be known, that desire to be
held.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah. It's just such like a innate thing that like I think it was the song Worst. No, it was Wait. And it's like I can't even remember the lyrics, but essentially what it was saying was how like the strongest man could be brought down. It's I'm strong, but I lost to a woman like that, or something like of that nature, where it was like somehow with all the strength, with all the muscle, all the macho, even you reference it more in terms of water, where like he is literally the most powerful human there, but somehow what brings him to his knees is like, yo, I need some water. It's like the least expected, seemingly powerless thing against him is the thing he craved so much to his death.
Right. Damn.
And it's like,
and so it's crazy. It's all like these metaphors of like, okay, name Delilah, you know. Yeah. Where do you go? Like, where do you go for nurture and for comfort that is always at the expense of like your safety, your soul, your inner peace, your sanctum? Because there's a comfort that is uncomfortable because it requires true intimacy. It requires true vulnerability. But it eventually leads to an even greater sense of security and belonging. Yeah. And then there is a comfort which is more instantaneous, but on the other side of it, there's the pack of wolves, or there's the soldiers, you know, the Philistines that are just ready to come through the back door. Like, and on the other end of it, so you have to trade it. You're like, okay, do I want instant comfort that will lead to a deeper sense of insecurity, or a comfort that requires more of me and requires more investment and less instantaneous gratification, but will lead to a deeper sense of security and inner peace? And every single day we're faced with that question, bro. Every single day. And
as you were just saying that about like what is your Delilah, it's like I'm thinking of David Complex now, right? Yeah. David had his Delilah, and it was Bathsheba. Yeah. But the fascinating thing with her story is he desired the Delilah. Like in Samson's story, she was a part that he desired, but she also wanted something from him. Yes. But David kind of like forced his way into that state of being. 100%. And he may not have died, but it was a stain on his
well, he did die. Like, he did die in a sense, you know. At the end, when God says to him, you know, you won't build the temple. Why? There's blood on your hands. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, there's blood on your hand, David, you know. And it's that, what always gets me about that story is one lie leads to another greater lie that leads to another. The end result is always murder. Yeah, it's murder of your peace, or it's murder of a person. Absolutely. Like, it's murder. Like, and then Nathan the prophet comes in and tells him the story. Do you remember? He tells him the story of, like, you know, the corrupt person. He's like, what would you do with him? And David responds with judgment, and then Nathan says, that's you. You know, that's who you are. And It's so it's so easy to hold these stories at arm's length and be like, but these are about us.
It is.
These are all about us.
With the David one, the biggest thing I left with it, I actually did this piece that was on it just before the album came out, and like it was the first thing I created after I came out of like my identity crisis, and it was also probably the thing that healed me the most, because like it was me realizing, well, I think I heard someone say it, but it was like David found Bathsheba when he was avoiding the thing he should have been doing
in the spring.
And he was caught lacking. Like he should have been out on the field.
Absolutely.
But he was ducking. And that's where the madness started.
Yeah. That chapter opens up with, in the springtime when kings go out to war, David stayed at home. Oh,
yes. So I tagged it as David was a great man, quoted as being a man after God's own heart, a man of great talent, great victory on the battlegrounds, and by the world's standard, extraordinary success. But besides all the greatness, 3 verses taint his legacy. And those verses are the ones that show David stepping off the front line, indulging in his flesh, and slipping into sin. He then ends up in this slippery slope that he tries to deny and cover up, and ends up sending Uriah, his friend, to his death on the front line, and making a lot of terrible decisions to cover his tracks. Watching a few talks dissecting these verses, it has been revealed to me that David was a rogue soldier. He abandoned the fight. He was somewhere he shouldn't have been, and he saw something he shouldn't have seen, which led him to do things he shouldn't have done. And like I ended up doing this piece that was
I remember that.
Piece, and I can remember just like sitting with it and just like, especially for me, the hat was always like the thorn in my side, because that period was like probably where I experienced the most guilt, because there was this hat that represented the pure Mano, the Mano, the ideal Mano that everyone was like, yo, this is amazing, you're a great person, this. But then on the flip side, I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not that. But I can remember telling Dan Brody actually that I wanted to make, this is months, about a month or two before the whole Plin situation. I told him that I wanted to make the hat my thing. And he was like, oh, it's kind of like it reminds me of Wes Anderson. And I didn't know who Wes Anderson was.
Right.
And I can remember getting to this moment where finally the red hat was my thing. But it was also kind of like a crown that I didn't feel like I deserved to wear.
Interesting.
And so for the most part, that time period, I stopped wearing it. And so putting it on here on the foot, I was just like, this feels so much like the David moment. And that was like a few months before the album dropped. Man,
that hat though, that's like the statement. David was a man after God's heart. And David's story, just like you're saying, is where multiple things can exist at the same time. That you can be the man who, went after Bathsheba, and you can also be the man who's after God's heart. I was in prison yesterday with these guys, and I was talking to them of like, you are not one thing. You are not just what you've done. What you've done has landed you here, and that's good. You should be here. And I'm chatting to guys that are doing 25-year sentences, and it's the right thing, and they know it. They're not trying to get out of it. They got but that's not all that you are. You're still a father, and you're still a son, and despite all, you're still one deeply beloved by God. And that is true, and that is actually truer than anything you've done. And that has to be truer than anything you've done, because if it's not, then it's the same with me. And I know what I've done. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know my Delilah moments, and my Bathsheba moments, and my Uriah moments, and that's why the scriptures are important, because they give us this huge backdrop of human failure, and the grace of God that just won't relent. And oh man, I'm so grateful for it.
So beautiful. I played this other track.
Bro.
It's the second one I made that same night.
Bro, tell me the time real quick.
It is 6:40.
6:40. As a practical, I don't know if I have time to get yourself a shot.
I reckon we could give it a shot. It's technically not complete.
Okay.
It kind of is.
Tell me truths, tell me lies, tell me lies.
baby. I can't hope you'll be right by my side lately. I've been lost, I'm hoping to make it. My heart has been breaking. The work I put in over sure. I'm hoping, I'm loving slowly. I'm hoping and hoping, praying you love me. Tell me you see. Tell me you see. Tell me you see.
Beautiful. I got that vocal in the background.
Tell me you see.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bro,
Yeah.
sick.
And like those two for me were like probably my favorite tracks just because one, they came out of just pure frustration, but also the first one is like I'm trying my best, and then which is kind of like a response. This one is tell me you see me, which is almost like two sides of the same coin. It's like
100%.
one is the insecure side of me, just like
Yeah.
please tell me you can actually see what's happening.
Yeah.
But the other side is like, yo, my hands are up. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I love that.
I
Yeah.
freaking love it. But
Bro, let me
For the
play
most part.
something real quick.
let's go.
Keep your phone connected. I'll just text you.
Awesome.
Dun, dun.
Yeah, I don't know what I do know what I love about those because I littered David Complex with it. Like the pitch down vocal and
Yeah.
chopped up into like
That's so sick.
little melodic backings, but I love it. Two people that I most want to attain a spot next to is Bon Iver and James Blake.
You're on your way, bro.
Certainly as a producer, I would love to.
You on the way, bro.
One day.
You'll understand like immediately why I am playing you this track.
Hey.
So this is on the new Orphan No More album.
Oh, sick. Let's go. The studio sessions look so sick.
Yeah, sick, dude.
Woo.
Mate, this has been such a sick day with you, man.
Absolutely.
Hello?
If y'all have enjoyed this,
Hello, mate, can you hear me?
or you relate with anything
Can we just get a taxi for a
we've said, share it because we
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
living this real life.
Cheers.
Oh,
Here we go, bro.
Let's go.
On our way.
I appreciate you so much.
Mate, I feel like we captured some sick stuff today.
Very much so.